Hi everybody, my name is Kaylee Tuttle, and today I'm going to talk to you about ibuprofen and how it works in the body. Ibuprofen is a pretty common medication that a lot of people have and a lot of households have, so it kind of makes an impact to a lot of people. And so I'm going to just break it down for you, and we're just going to go from there. Alrighty. Okay, so what is ibuprofen? So ibuprofen is basically an NSAID. So an NSAID is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, and it kind of is in the same category as like aspirin, Advil, Aleve. That kind of category is all NSAIDs, which are anti-inflammatory drugs. So remember anti-inflammatory because that's going to be important in the next couple slides. Okay, so I'm going to break it down for you. So basically, when you have an ibuprofen, it goes in the body and it goes down and it gets broken down in the stomach, in the small intestines, and in the liver. And so it gets broken down, and then from the liver it goes into your bloodstream, and then it goes into that target area of where, like, let's say you got hurt or something and something hurts, and so it goes in that target area and it gets to work. And so basically, what does it do once it gets to that area? Like, how does that begin to even relieve the pain or in that kind of way? So basically, let's say you fell. You were carrying something and you fell down the stairs and you hurt your back or something. So you're in pain, and you take some ibuprofen and it goes to the back. And what does it do? So basically, when you get hurt, the body cell uses phospholipase, which turns into arachidonic acid. So basically, here's your cell, and it goes down to your phospholipase and then your arachidonic acid. And from your arachidonic acid, it produces two things: COX-1 and COX-2. And from those, it produces like your prostaglandins and like your thromboxans. So basically, COX-1 or COX-2 COX-1 or COX-2, it's your cyclooxygenase or COX. I'm just going to say COX if that's all right, because cyclooxygenase is a long word to say. So basically, it goes into your COX. COX-1 and COX-2. So here we have it, and it goes into your prostaglandins. So basically, I'm going to explain this more in depth, because specifically here, ibuprofen targets this area mainly. So I'm going to talk about this area and your arachidonic acid with your COX-1 and COX-2. Okay, so you have your arachidonic acid, and you have COX-1 and COX-2. And basically what happens is ibuprofen binds with COX-1 and ibuprofen binds with COX-2. And so once that ibuprofen binds with it, so let's say ibuprofen binds with COX-1, so what it does is it decreases your prostaglandins. So what are your prostaglandins? So basically, your prostaglandins is a group of lipids with hormone-like actions that your body makes primarily at sites of tissue damage or infection. Or in other more simple terms, it's your natural chemicals in your body that trigger pain, inflammation, and fever. So it's your pain, inflammation, and fever that's triggered. So COX-1 decreases your prostaglandins in the production of it, and it also protects the stomach on ibuprofen. So your stomach has this thin lining around it inside, and the ibuprofen goes in, and basically what it does, it protects the stomach. So it makes kind of like a mucus thing around it, and so it only just hits mucus and doesn't damage the stomach. That is, unless you take too much for too long, that can damage that mucus and gets to that stomach, and I'll talk about that later. So next we have your COX-2. So COX-2 basically is, once ibuprofen binds with that, it decreases your pro-inflammatory prostaglandins. So your prostaglandins are your pain, fever, inflammation, which when you decrease the production of the prostaglandins, it then decreases the pain, fever, and inflammation in that specific spot, which is really cool, because without ibuprofen binding to this, you would have your natural regular pain that you would have without ibuprofen, without it binding with the COX-1 and COX-2. But once it does, it can decrease that pain, fever, and inflammation. Supposedly, that's what it's supposed to do. So I'm gonna just summarize for a second. So the ibuprofen's whole goal is for it to reduce your COX-1 and COX-2 enzymes from making prostaglandins. And with fewer prostaglandins, it the body's pain, inflammation, and fever can decrease in that targeted area, and that's pretty neat, I'd say. Okay, so now that we know what ibuprofen does and how it works in the body, how does this relate to topics in class? So basically, it's a covalent compound. So this looks familiar, I'd say, right here. And what even is it? So your covalent compound, it synthesizes the bonding of hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. Look at that. We've seen that many times in class. And so this is all bonded together and makes ibuprofen, because when a chemist or pharmacist or whatever combines them, they put it all in and makes ibuprofen. And so you kind of need to know how binding of chemicals work for you in order to do it. We also can figure out the pH level of ibuprofen. So pH, it measures how acidic or basic a substance is. And so ibuprofen is kind of a weak acid with a pKa of 4.4, but its solubility in water, but it also has like a low pH level, which makes it an acid. And it's cool because we've learned this in class. We are learning this in class, and we know this, and it's cool to translate from what we're learning in class to something that many people take in their mouths, like daily, to relieve the pain. So there's that pH level. Now let's talk about my future career. So basically, right now I'm an EMT. I'm in an ambulance. I apologize for the noise and all the radios. I'm still on shift. And so basically, I can give aspirin. That's in my scope of practice. I can give aspirin, but I can't give ibuprofen. But that's not my scope of practice. But basically, they're kind of in the same anti-inflammatory drugs. And so it's kind of sad because I've never even thought about, how does this work when I give it to a patient? How does that work? Because I didn't really care, because I was just going to give it to the patient and move on with my day. But knowing now how it works in somebody's body, and like kind of that along the lines, and also how it would work in my body, can help me figure out, should I give this to my patient? Kind of just like more precaution I think I got from learning in this project. In my future career, I'm going to continue to become a paramedic, and also on this just on the side, but I kind of want my main future career to maybe be in sports medicine or something like that. I'm not really positive yet, but that's kind of the goal of where we're going. And so I think knowing it now, in the future, it can help me question that, because I never really thought about that. I never really thought to question it. And so knowing this, I'm like, maybe I should before I give this to my patient, and even to myself. Okay, so now how does this relate to society? So society as a whole pretty much uses ibuprofen a lot. It's very common, like I said in the beginning, it's a very common household, and a lot of people use it. I mean, how many people do you know that whenever they're in pain, they just pop like 4 ibuprofens? I've done that many times. I will try not to do that in the future, but it's very common. And knowing what this, like, maybe if people are more aware of how it affects your body, they will be more cautious towards it, because, like I said, abusing ibuprofen can cause a lot of damage to your organs. It can thin the lining of the stomach. It could cause ulcers and GI bleeding, which doesn't sound very fun, because our organs have a lot to metabolize, even daily. But then when they metabolize these drugs, for taking too much for too long, can lead to more serious issues like chronic kidney disease or liver failure. It's kind of like stuff like that over a long period of time, it can cause more damage than helping. And I just think with society, when they know kind of that's how it is, and that's if they know how ibuprofen works in the body and the damages it can do, it can make people more aware and maybe less abuse ibuprofen. Because I know after this, I definitely will use less ibuprofen. And it's just mainly medications in general, because it does put a toll on the body. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I can't wait to hear